welcome to the fourth episode. Right, I think this is the fourth episode, and the fourth series episode in our series is about designing learner-centered hybrid or HyFlex learning experiences. So, just a quick review for everyone. you know um in the first series, you've heard me introduce what hybrid or high flex learning is, right? And then in the second episode, we have Jessica Demihilio speaking about infrastructure, space, your learning toolkit that are good for hybrid and high flex learning. And last week during Holy Tuesday, or in on Holy Tuesday, we listened to Mr. Gino Lawayon, who spoke to us how we can transition from remote learning to hybrid learning, especially right now because a lot of schools are preparing for the new school year, but there are also a lot of schools who are slowly going back. The term of DepEd is actually progressive face-to-face classes right now. But despite that, our own context still is about limited face-to-face instruction. That means, how do we accommodate our students who cannot go on site because of the limited space, but can still join us through online learning platform? This is where hybrid or high flex learning comes in. Right, and again, if you remember in my first talk, we showed you the online learning spectrum, and you know that hybrid sits at the middle between online learning and face-to-face learning. And we said that, in the end, hybrid learning is about the seamless integration of online and face-to-face instruction. Enjoy for us, for our students and learners to enjoy both worlds, the best features of both online learning and face-to-face instruction. Okay, and just to give you a visual a visual idea or a visual cue of what hybrid learning is. Again, I'm showing you um pictures right now of teachers, my the CLE teachers, and shout out to Mr. Jerome Jaime and Mrs. Tess Bautista, CLE teachers in my department, in the grade school CLE department. And that's how hybrid or high flex learning is happening. But the big question right now is, how do we design learning experiences? How do we know that our learning activities in a hybrid or high flex classroom or learning environment or setup is actually something that is worth experiencing by our students? So how do we enable this? Now is the time when we go to the specific discussions on lessons, unit plans, module plans, what else. On the next episode, we'll talk about classroom management and community building, and even on the last one, assessment. So now we are going to the specifics or requirements of running or implementing a hybrid learning classroom. Just to give you a background also, there are different kinds of learning experiences that you can do in a hybrid or high flex learning environment. And these are the three main categories, I think, or maybe the proper word, or kinds. You can have live synchronous classes. Live synchronous classes means simultaneous teaching of on-site and online students, like the picture that I'm showing you again. So I went back. This is a live synchronous class, and a lot of us will really go to this live synchronous classes. However, it's also possible that during the live synchronous schedule, because we follow a daily schedule, it's also possible for subjects to put in independent learning experiences within live synchronous schedule. So, for example, during English time, on second or third period, for example, in the third period, and teacher decides to have an independent learning experience for students, it's possible for on-site and online students to undergo learning experiences independently, which means that they can do online collaboration on their own, they can do research on their own, or even interact with the lessons on their own without really being in the same platform. That's independent learning experiences, right? In a live synchronous schedule. Now, it's also possible to have learner-directed asynchronous classes, especially when we are flexing that our school is a high-flex school. If we are a high flex school, we know that the flex there is the flexibility in the choice of the students. Now, it will really depend on you if you will widen the options, the set of options for the students. And one of the possible options is for students who cannot go to school, who have no internet connection also, and if it's possible for them and to accommodate them through asynchronous classes, which means they study on their own at home without being required to go online with their classmates, unless it's really important, like consultations, like maybe meeting with the teacher and something like that. So it's possible when we talk about high flex or hybrid learning, there are different kinds of learning experiences, general kinds of learning experiences. But the big question is, what do we do within live synchronous classes? For example, how do we design our live synchronous classes so that we can actually achieve the goal of an engaged, active learning experience for our students? I think that's the big question that we have right now, right? How does a hybrid learning, like a live synchronous class, really look like? What does it look like? Okay, so in our question of how to design hybrid or high flex learning experiences, we now have to ask ourselves, what are the things that we need to consider? For me, these are some of the important things that you need to consider when you design your learning experiences. When you're unit planning, you're planning your modules or your lesson, doesn't really matter however you term it. But in the end, when you design your learning experiences, these are the things that you need to consider. What are your intended learning outcomes? Do you consider the context of all your students? Remember, hybrid learning, especially when you're flexing, that you have a high flex environment, that means that you deeply consider the context of the students. Remember, in all of our discussions in education, context is the king. Context even is more important than content, because you can teach all the content that you want, but if it's not appropriate, the manner of teaching is not appropriate to the context of the student, then I don't think you are able to achieve your learning outcomes well.